Welcome to Conspiracist.
Great to be here.
Today, we are diving into, well, a pretty heavy topic. The hypothesis that governments have intentionally concealed evidence of global surveillance states.
It's a complex web, definitely. Lots of threads to pull on.
Exactly. So we'll be looking at various disclosures, different programs, perspectives, trying to get a handle on it.
And the goal, as always, is to evaluate the information objectively, right? No sensationalism, just looking at what's been reported.
That's the plan. Lay out the information available without taking sides. So where should we start? Maybe some history.
Yeah, context is key here. You really have to go back to the post-World War II era. Think 1947. That's when the UK-USA Treaty was signed. Top secret agreement, basically setting up the framework for signals intelligence cooperation SIGINT between several countries.
So the foundation was laid pretty early on. But what about surveillance within countries? Domestic concerns?
Oh, absolutely. Those cropped up too. You had, for instance, the FBI. Between roughly 1960 and 1974, they were investigating people they called subversives.
Subversives? That sounds broad.
It was. And they ended up keeping files on about 1 million Americans.
1 million.
Yeah. And the kicker, no convictions ever came out of those specific investigations.
Wow. Okay. So collecting information, but not necessarily leading to legal action.
Right. And then you had the Church Committee in the mid-70s looking into intelligence activities.
I remember hearing about that. What did they find?
Well, one key finding was that intelligence collection just naturally tends to expand. It builds its own momentum.
Like once you have the capability.
Exactly. There's pressure internally to use the data you're collecting. It creates its own justification in a way.
Okay, that makes sense. So that's the historical backdrop. Fast forward a bit. The 2010s were a big period for this, right?
Yeah.
The disclosures.
Oh, huge. That's when media reports really blew the lid off, revealing what were described as these secret treaties, again, involving that UK-USA community.
And the aim was global surveillance.
That's what the report suggested, yeah. Implementing capabilities for really widespread global surveillance.
And this involved cooperation between countries.
A lot of it. For
Yeah.
example, Der Spiegel reported Germany's BND, their foreign intelligence agency, was transferring, quote, massive amounts of intercepted data to the NSA.
Okay, Germany and the U.S. Who else?
Sweden, too. Swedish television uncovered this really old secret agreement from 1954.
54.
Yep. Under which Sweden's FRA, their defense radio agency, gave the NSA data they got from intercepting cables.
So these partnerships were deep and long-standing, it seems.
It certainly looks that way. And the list of involved agencies is, well, it's pretty extensive.
Let's hear it.
Okay, reports mention Australia's ASD, Britain's GCHQ, Canada's CSE.
The core Five Eyes partners.
Right. But also Denmark's PATE, France's DGSE, Italy's AIS, the Netherlands' AIVD, Norway's NIS, Spain's CNI, Switzerland's NDB, Singapore's SID.
Wow, okay. That's quite a network.
And Israel's ISNU. And there was a particularly interesting detail reported about Israel.
What was that?
That they were receiving raw, unfiltered data about U.S. citizens directly from the NSA.
Raw data, unfiltered, on U.S. citizens going to another country.
That was the report. It raises obvious questions about privacy protections when data crosses borders like that.
You're telling me the sheer number of agencies involved suggests a really deeply embedded global system.
It does. And it wasn't just about bulk data transfer. There were specific high-profile incidents, too.
Like what?
The Guardian reported the NSA monitored phone calls of 35 world leaders.
World leaders? How?
Apparently, they got the numbers from an official in another U.S. government department, just handed them over.
And I imagine the reaction wasn't great.
Not at all. Angela Merkel, the German chancellor at the time, was furious, accused the U.S. of a breach of trust, said spying on allies was just unacceptable.
Yeah, that would definitely strain relations. It highlights that tension, doesn't it? Security versus diplomacy.
Absolutely. Monitoring allies suggests a very broad definition of who or what is a legitimate intelligence target.
And it wasn't just world leaders, right? What about ordinary people?
No, reports also surfaced about the NSA collecting location data from cell phones of ordinary Americans back in 2010.
Location data.
Yeah.
Tracking where people were.
Seems like it. Though, interestingly, the NSA later stopped that specific program.
Why?
They apparently decided it lacked, quote, operational value.
Huh. So they tried it, collected the data, and then decided it wasn't useful enough.
That's the narrative presented.
Yep.
It does suggest a sort of trial and error phase with these mass surveillance technologies.
And raises questions about why they started doing it in the first place without knowing its value.
Precisely. The essential justification, the oversight, those questions remain.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. What about the legal side? Was any of this deemed legal?
Well, there were court cases. Judge William H. Pauley III in New York, he ruled that the government's global telephone data collection system was legal.
On what grounds?
He argued it was needed to stop terrorist attacks, basically, and that it fit within existing laws.
How so? What laws?
He leaned heavily on a Supreme Court case, Smith v. Maryland. It's a bit technical, but the gist is,
Okay.
the idea is you don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy for information you voluntarily give to a third party. Like the numbers you dial on your phone, you give those to the phone company.
So he applied that to bulk collection of everyone's call metadata.
That was his reasoning, yes.
Yeah.
That the metadata wasn't private in the same way the content of the call might be.
But surely that was challenged.
Oh, immediately. The ACLU appealed.
Their argument.
They argued that, look, even if you need to track the connections of suspected terrorists, that doesn't justify permanent mass surveillance of literally every citizen.
Right, it's the scale of it.
Exactly. It's that core debate.
Yeah.
National security versus individual rights and privacy. Is mass surveillance a proportionate response? That's still argued today.
Okay, so the legality is contested. Now let's get into the how. What technologies were reportedly being used? You mentioned computer implants.
Yes, the disclosures mention these quite a bit, with lots of colorful code names. Sparrow 2, Firewalk, Jinsu, Ireet Monk.
Sounds like something out of a spy movie.
Doesn't it? Swap, Wistful Toll, Howler Monkey. The list goes on, each supposedly designed for a specific function.
Like what kind of functions?
Things like gaining access to computer systems, maybe intercepting communications directly from devices, messing with network hardware, even firmware. It suggests a really sophisticated toolkit.
Proactively hacking into systems, essentially.
That's what implants implies, yes.
Yeah.
A diverse set of tools for different targets and situations. Cottonmouth III, Junior Mint, Maestro 2. It really paints a picture of advanced cyber capabilities.
And were there other examples of, well, states using tech for spying in unexpected ways?
There was a report about the French public treasury, the Trésor Public.
France, what did they do?
Apparently, they issued fake digital security certificates impersonating Google.
Impersonating Google. Why?
The report said it was to spy on French government employees. Essentially, a sophisticated man-in-the-middle attack undermining the trust system of the internet.
Wow. Okay, so even allies potentially targeting their own officials.
It raises serious questions about the integrity of online security infrastructure when state actors might be doing that.
Absolutely. You also mentioned location data earlier. Was there more detail on that?
Yes, the Washington Post published an internal NSA chart apparently showing mass collection of mobile phone location records.
How mass were we talking?
The chart supposedly indicated collecting around 5 billion records daily.
5 billion a day.
That was the number reported. Stored in a database codenamed ASHA.
That's just staggering, tracking the movements of potentially millions. Constantly.
The scale is hard to comprehend. It points to immense storage and processing power, obviously.
And what about intercepting communications directly, like tapping cables?
That came up too. Britain's GCHQ reportedly had a program called Circuit, or OPC-1.
And what did Circuit do?
Allegedly, it involved tapping into the undersea fiber optic cables that carry global internet traffic.
The actual physical cables under the ocean.
That's the backbone, yes. And the reports, based on the Snowden leaks, implicated major telecom companies like BT and Vodafone.
Suggesting they cooperated?
Or were compelled to cooperate, perhaps. Tapping those cables gives you access to an unbelievable volume of international communications.
It feels like tapping the world's main artery for data.
A good analogy. And the NSA reportedly had its own program for accessing cables, RAM Part A.
How did that one work?
It apparently involved deals with third-party countries.
Meaning?
Countries that would allow the NSA to install surveillance gear on fiber optic cables passing through their territory.
In exchange for what?
Access to NSA surveillance technology for their own use. Denmark and Germany were named as partners in reports by Dagbladed Information and The Intercept.
So, a sort of quid pro quo. You let us tap your cables, we give you some of our tech.
Seems to be the arrangement described. It highlights this global network of surveillance partnerships leveraging access points around the world.
And what about our phones? Smartphones became ubiquitous in this period. Were they targeted?
Oh, definitely. Reports indicated the NSA set up specific task forces just for Apple's iOS and Google's Android. They were actively looking for ways in.
And GCHQ.
They reportedly focused on cracking BlackBerry encryption, which was considered strong at the time.
So all the major platforms were targets.
Pretty much. There were also mentions of smaller NSA scripts designed to target specific iOS features or popular apps. They were trying to get data from every angle.
It's like the smartphone boom created a whole new rich source of information.
Absolutely. And top-secret documents reportedly showed the Five Eyes Alliance believed they had access to the majority of global internet and phone communications.
Majority? How?
The documents specifically named key undersea cables like CME-W3 and TAP-14 as points of access. They were strategically positioned to capture huge swaths of traffic.
So the Five Eyes nations coordinated to cover the globe's major data pathways.
That's the picture painted by those reported documents. A very comprehensive, cooperative effort.
Let's go back to Germany for a second. You mentioned the BND sending data to the NSA. Was there more detail on that relationship?
Yes, reports suggested the BND systematically sent metadata to the NSA.
Metadata being?
Information about communications, who called who, when, for how long, but not the content itself.
Okay. And what did the BND get in return?
Access to the NSA's X-Key score system.
X-Key score? What's that?
A very powerful tool, apparently, for searching and analyzing vast amounts of internet data collected by the NSA. So the BND could use it to analyze data, potentially including data collected through their own programs, Miraphor and Veras.
So data flowing both ways and shared analytical tools. A close partnership.
It seems so. And it wasn't just foreign intelligence. Germany's domestic agency, the BFV, also reportedly worked closely with the NSA. There was a reported agreement for them to transfer data records using X-Key score, too. And they were part of a joint thing called Project 6.
Project 6. Who was involved?
The CIA, the BND, and the BFV. The goal was reportedly to build a database of personal information, particularly focusing on individuals presumed to be jihadists.
A shared database built by multiple agencies from different countries.
Yes, pooling information to create these comprehensive profiles. Another example of that international intelligence collaboration.
Okay, so we've covered history, disclosures, specific programs, tech. What about the public? How did people react to all this?
Well, public opinion data certainly reflected concern. Pew Research Center back in 2014 found really low public confidence in data privacy.
How low?
Only 6% felt very confident their data was private and secure with government agencies. Same low number, 6% for landline phone companies. Even credit card companies only got 9%.
That's really low confidence across the board. People clearly felt exposed.
It suggests a major disconnect between what people expected in terms of privacy and what they perceived was actually happening, especially after the disclosures.
And did these revelations have wider ripple effects globally?
Freedom House, the NGO, they pointed out something interesting in 2014.
What was that?
They said some governments were basically using the NSA revelations as an excuse.
An excuse for what?
To ramp up their own domestic surveillance, often with little oversight. And frequently targeting political opponents or human rights activists, not just terrorists.
So using the national security justification revealed by the U.S. as cover for their own internal monitoring.
That was the concern raised by Freedom House, yes, that it could legitimize broader surveillance powers for less democratic regimes.
That brings up the whole ethical dimension, doesn't it? Beyond just privacy.
Absolutely. The potential chilling effect on civil liberties, free speech, association. If people think they're constantly monitored, does it change their behavior?
The idea of intellectual privacy, being able to explore ideas without fear of being watched.
Exactly. And the potential for power imbalances. If the state knows everything about you, but you know little about its operations, that creates risks of discrimination, selective enforcement.
It's sort of like that panopticon idea, the prison where inmates think they might be watched at any moment, so they police themselves.
That concept gets brought up a lot in surveillance discussions, yes. The psychological effect of potential constant observation.
And were there examples of surveillance being used domestically in ways that seemed questionable, even beyond the 1960s FBI stuff.
Well, there were reports about the FBI monitoring protest activity more recently. For instance, a counterterrorism investigation into activists who were just planning nonviolence training.
Nonviolence training investigated as counterterrorism.
That was reported. Also, labeling groups like Direct Action and BAM Anti-War and civil rights groups as potential terrorist threats, even while acknowledging their past actions were peaceful.
So blurring the lines between dissent and terrorism.
That's certainly a concern raised by those reports. On a somewhat related note, it's interesting that overall FBI prosecutions actually declined after 2001, and referrals for prosecution were trending down even before that, between 86 and 2006.
Huh. So maybe more investigation, but fewer actual prosecutions resulting.
That's one possible interpretation of those trends, yeah. Makes you wonder about the focus of resources.
Okay, we need to include some counter-arguments or nuances, though, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't all presented as inherently negative.
True. You have Judge Pauly's perspective, for instance, that mass data collection, specifically the phone metadata program, was necessary for counterterrorism. He saw it as a vital tool.
A necessary evil, perhaps, in his view.
That seems to be the argument. And others have proposed technical solutions like Yochai Benkler suggesting decentralized data storage to minimize privacy risks inherent in large central databases.
So not necessarily stopping collection, but managing the data differently.
Potentially, yeah. And sometimes groups mentioned in these discussions, like the Council on Foreign Relations, are argued to be just policy discussion forums, not secret cabals pulling strings. It's important to distinguish between different types of organizations and claims.
Right. Keep the analysis focused on the specific evidence for surveillance claims.
Exactly.
So wrapping this up, we've covered a lot of ground here. Historical agreements like UK-USA, the big disclosures of the 2010s, specific tech like implants and cable tapping, the legal arguments, public reaction.
It really paints a picture of a vast, complex, and technologically advanced global surveillance apparatus built up over decades through international cooperation.
And the evidence comes from leaked documents, investigative journalism, court rulings, government admissions, quite a range of sources.
Revealing significant implications for privacy, civil liberties, international relations, the balance of power between citizens and the state.
And I guess the core question we started with, whether all this constitutes an intentionally concealed global surveillance state. That remains somewhat open to interpretation, doesn't it?
It does. It depends on how you weigh the evidence, how you define intentionally concealed, and what threshold you set for calling something a state in that global sense. The information is out there now, thanks to the disclosures.
So it's really up to you, the listener, to look at this complex picture and draw your own conclusions based on the information presented.
Critical analysis is key.
Indeed. Well, this has been a deep dive into a really significant and ongoing issue.
Definitely a lot to think about.
Thanks for listening to Conspiracist.